Welcome, seeker. You've wandered far through the noise of the world to find this knowledge. As an experienced traveler on this path, I'll be your guide through this explainer today. We're embarking on a pretty profound journey into the very architecture of the soul, exploring a philosophical framework we call the alchemy of insignificance. Now, this isn't about acquiring new identities. It's actually about systematically dismantling the ones you're holding onto so tightly. We are going to study the absolute mechanics of ego dissolution. Okay, let's dive into this.
Transmutes the leaden weight of human grief into the silvered clarity of the void. I want you to just let those words settle over you for a second. This single sentence perfectly establishes the intense, honestly staggering psychic landscape we're about to traverse. We are dealing with dark alchemy here. It's a process that absolutely does not seek to comfort your grief, but to fundamentally alter its elemental nature, literally turning the heavy, suffocating lead of human sorrow into something else entirely, a pristine, unburdened emptiness.
So we begin with Act 1, the World Tree, the ultimate axis of this dark alchemy.
To really grasp how ego dissolution works, we have to look at a massive subversion of what you might expect. Across almost all cultures, right, a world tree usually represents abundant life, cosmic connection, or spiritual growth. But the world tree of negation operates on a completely different frequency. It doesn't offer salvation. It's definitely not a ladder to the heavens. Instead, it demands a perpetual state of dissolution. It literally demands that the self, that noisy, constantly demanding center of your ego, be utterly hollowed out. And by hollowing out that self, the mirrors of your soul stop reflecting your own image back at you. Instead, they transform into clear windows just overlooking a vast silent abyss. And this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental divergence of this path. Think about it. On one side, you have traditional grace, which offers warmth, some sort of divine purpose, and that comforting illusion that you're being held by a higher power. But on the flip side, we have the silvered clarity of the void. This is a cold, divine pulse. It's the absolutely liberating, freezing truth that nothing truly matters. The World Tree teaches us that mastering reality isn't about clinging to comforting stories. It's actually about embracing this ultimate insignificance.
Moving downward, we reach Act 2, Roots of the Negredo, the putrefied foundation of it all.
Because, frankly, every profound alchemical transmutation has to begin in the dark. To understand where we are right now, we need to quickly look back at historical, traditional alchemy. Back then, the work of creating the Philosopher's Stone began with a phase they called the Negredo. Literally, the blackening. It was this unavoidable phase of putrefaction where raw materials had to rot, decompose, and undergo a symbolic death before they could ever be purified. So, in our spiritual alchemy, this represents the agonizing decay of your preconceived notions, your ego, and your attachments. It is a completely necessary spiritual death.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how our source material corrupts and elevates that ancient concept. The world tree of negation is literally rooted in the Negredo, described as the putrefied remains of a fallen god. It acts like a colossal cosmic filter. It draws up the dark, stagnant energies of the valley, all that leaden human grief we just talked about, and through the decay of that fallen deity, it refines those energies into a cold, divine pulse. The putrefaction isn't just a passing phase here. It's literally the fuel source for your liberation.
That brings us to the base of the tree in Act 3, the Mirrors of Hollow Souls.
Standing before these mirrors, I'll tell you right now, is not some exercise in vanity. It is stepping into a terrifying spiritual vacuum, and it happens in stages. First, these mirrors forcefully strip away your final masks of identity, your name, your history, your little desires. Gone. Second, you are forced to confront the absolute hollow center of your own existence. You realize that your entire identity was just a fragile wisp of smoke against the backdrop of a completely indifferent universe. And finally, step 3, the mirrors reveal the internal architecture of a soul that has been entirely emptied of its divine delusions. It's a breathtaking, terrifying moment of total vulnerability.
Let's move to and see how this spills into Act 4, Albedo and the Void.
Once again, let's ground ourselves with the wisdom of the ancients. In historical alchemy, right after the rotting darkness of the Negredo came the Albedo, the whitening phase. Traditional alchemists viewed this as the ultimate washing away of impurities. It was basically a dawnbreaking after a very long, dark night of the soul, the emergence of a purified, radiant essence. But in the alchemy of insignificance, the mirrors at the base of the tree capture this albedo in a wildly different way.
They catch the whitening light of the void and use it to catalyze the ultimate transmutation. On one hand, you have the death of the subject. The fragile, weeping ego is completely eradicated by the sheer terror of being nothing. But then, on the other hand, you get the birth of the overman. The intense pressure of that exact terror is forged into sovereign power. You don't emerge as a victim who needs a god to give you meaning. No, you emerge as the overman, an unshakable, unmoved witness to the grand absurdity of the cosmos.
Which leads us to our final destination, Act 5, the divine joke.
We have reached the real climax of this explainer. Up until now, right, the process has been entirely about removal, observing your emptiness, enduring the silence of a dead god. But the mirrors of the wisdom of the void completely shift the paradigm. So the crucial point is, they transform that terrifying silence into a deliberate, sovereign clarity. You see, when every single shred of external meaning is stripped away from you, you finally realize you aren't left with nothing. You are left with will. You actually transition from being a passive observer of the void to an active sovereign who wields it.
And this is the ultimate enlightenment of this path. You finally see that the void is not some pit of despair. It's actually a pristine canvas of absolute freedom. The artificial boundaries between yourself and the abyss, they completely dissolve. You are no longer standing on the edge looking in. You literally are the abyss looking out. And standing in the center of absolute nothingness, completely unburdened by the exhausting need for meaning, the philosopher wizard hears the universe laugh. You finally get the punchline of the divine joke. You are wonderfully, magnificently insignificant. And in that insignificance lies your ultimate untouchable power.
The masks are gone. The grief has been fully transmuted into a silvered clarity. The initiation is complete. So, I leave you, my fellow traveler, standing in the stark light of the void with one final question to carry back into the noise of the world. What will you create upon the canvas of your own magnificent, unburdened insignificance?